breaking news out of the North Sea, off the northeast coast of England. A massive rescue operation underway there after a collision between a US-flagged tanker and a Madeira-flagged cargo ship. You can see, certainly from this images, that it's clear that an enormous fire has broken out there on a vessel in the North Sea. I want to bring in Martin Boers, of the CEO of the Port of Grimsby. And as I understand it, your port put on notice to receive those who are being rescued from that ship or from these ships. So what do we know at this point?
Yes, well, we were put on standby around about 11 o'clock this morning that we would be accepting casualties from a collision out at sea. So the actual collision was about 10 miles northeast of the Humber of Grimsby, where we are. And then around about 1 o'clock, we got the first casualties. The first one was an offshore wind farm vessel, was in the vicinity and picked up 13 casualties. That came in. And then the second vessel that came in shortly afterwards was an ABP pilot vessel, and that had 10 casualties. And then shortly after that, another vessel came in with 9 casualties. So a total of 32 casualties came, and they were taken to Princess Diana Hospital in Grimsby. There was a queue of ambulances ready on the quay to take them away. All of the 32 were alive, so we don't know of any. I don't know of any casualties, anybody that's lost a life or anything. And I don't know how many crew there were in total. And we've also been told that there might be another vessel with some more casualties to come.
Do we know whether these casualties were plucked from the water or were taken from the vessels?
I would think it depends on how there was a fireball, so it just depends on what happened out there, and of course nobody knows. Very few people were there at the time. I would imagine they were taken off the vessel. There would be evacuation procedures on the boat, so all the crew would know what to do and how to get off. But again, who knows what the actual incident was like? And I've seen a couple of the pictures, and it's fairly dramatic. So it looks terrible.
How many rescue boats have gone out from your port, the Port of Grimsby, and how many are still out looking?
Well, what happens in this circumstance is that immediately there is almost automatically a mayday signal that goes out. So what happens is that all the vessels in the immediate vicinity will go to assist the crew and the vessels and the people on board. So the first vessel that came in was actually a crew transfer vessel for the offshore wind farms. So he wasn't out there. He didn't go to rescue them particularly. He just happened to be there. So he was the first one there. And then they called for the lifeboat. So there's only one lifeboat on the Humber, but one went from the Humber, another one went from Cleethorpes, and another lifeboat went from Bridlington. So lifeboats went, but luckily there were actually 2 or 3 vessels already out there. So some of the injured people, the casualties, were able to get on board and come ashore.
Understood. Do you have any more information on exactly what happened or what might have led to this?
The only thing I know is that the 2 vessels, the Stena Immaculate and the Solong, the Stena Immaculate was at anchor, which means it was stationary. So it was basically parked out in the North Sea, and the Solong was steaming. So it seems a mystery, really, because all the vessels now have very high sophisticated technical equipment to plot courses and to look at any obstacles or anything they've got to avoid. So the North Sea is actually a very busy stretch of water. It's a shallow sea as well, but there's lots of oil rigs, there's wind farms, there's protected areas. There's all sorts of areas that vessels are not allowed to go. So you've got to have your wits about you. But also with the vessels, they set a course. So there will be a course that would have been set. So you would presume that they would have known that they were on a particular course. So you wouldn't expect that a vessel would tie up at anchor in a shipping lane. But I don't know. There's a lot of speculation, but it's difficult to actually suggest what went on, other than the fact it should never have happened.
Well, Anna Stewart, following developments for us, what do we know at this point?
So information is still pretty scarce. What you can see from that video, though, is of course a vessel on fire, a cargo ship and an oil tanker colliding. The first call, the alarm call, came at 9:48 a.m. this morning, and the Coast Guard says that it has responded with fixed-wing aircraft and nearby vessels with firefighting capability. At this stage, we know that 32 casualties have been brought to shore. And what we can really glean at this stage, Becky, is looking at Vessel Finder and some of these marine tracking websites. We know, for instance, the oil tanker is US flagged. It's called the Stena Immaculate. It weighs nearly 30,000 tons. It's 183 meters long, and it's collided with Solong, which is a Portuguese-flagged cargo vessel, which is a bit smaller. You can see, of course, the oil tanker being on fire there, which we believe came from a port in Greece and was actually anchored off the port of Hull at this time, and the cargo vessel was travelling from a port in Scotland and was en route to the Netherlands. Now, of course, there is so much we don't know at this stage. We don't know why the collision happened. It happened in daylight this morning, so you'd imagine visibility wasn't too bad, and both of these vessels are showing up on various vessel finding websites, so you'd think the radar was working. We also, of course, don't know whether everybody has been accounted for. 32 casualties have been brought to shore. They are heading to hospitals as we speak right now. We know that there are helicopters, in the area doing search and rescue, but we just don't know whether everyone's accounted for at this stage. Becky?
By my calculation, the first alarms on this then would have been about 6 hours ago. What more do we know about the emergency rescue operations at this point?
So it's being led by the Coast Guard, and at this stage we know that it involves helicopters, planes, it involves many actual ships that you can see on some of these radar websites. I can see about 5 or 6 tugboats right by these two big vessels, I imagine trying to help with search and rescue, but information is scarce, and at this stage, of course, no one's really getting into the question of why they collided. It's very much a sort of search and rescue mission right now.